Tēnā anō koutou katoa. I'm proud to be supported by my Green Party colleagues and leaders in the Rainbow community, Kevin, Clive and Tabby. I knew coming to Parliament that I would face prejudice and homophobia. I knew that people would not like the way I dress or speak or the causes that I advocate for. I knew that I would be under scrutiny, as is appropriate for every single person that has the privilege of this position. But I could never imagine or prepare myself to be attacked in such a baseless, personal and violent way. That my life and that of my child would be threatened. That poisonous transphobic hate and imported culture wars would be levelled against me and my community, not just by extremists online, but by individuals who hold the highest level of authority in this institution. I am here to bring my full self into Parliament and to represent my communities in the most authentic way possible. This is why when I was advised by the party to delete the page before coming to Parliament, I chose not to. I can admit that I was politically naive, and we have paid a huge price for that naivety. None of this means I deserve the barrage of abuse and vitriol I have experienced. I have been fielding a significant number of threats to my life and the safety of my child and family, some of which have been so graphic and disturbing that I have been advised not to leave my house or appear in public due to real concerns for my safety. These attacks I've faced have been baseless and cruel. Queer people are not a danger to children. This is an outdated and homophobic lie. I have been targeted due to both my identity as a queer and non-binary parent and my public platform as an outspoken member of Parliament. In particular, images of my child from my private Instagram account have been taken without permission, removed from their original context and shared online in misleading and manipulative ways. Context is key, and something that has been deliberately ignored and twisted by some incredibly bad faith actors looking for an excuse to punch down on someone who represents something they don't agree with. The posts at the centre of these baseless attacks include 10 images from a range of activities in my life, with a pop culture pun in the caption. Bussy galore is an in-joke and a nickname. The translation here is me at large living my best life. Referring to myself in this way on Instagram is an expression of my queer identity, and it acts as a persona, much like a drag performer or a comedian might use. The caption, which references me, is an example of the way marginalised communities often reclaim or subvert language in order to exist unapologetically. I recognise that bussy is not a term all rainbow people use or like, but it is one that is commonly understood and appreciated by my friends and community. For me, this term is wordplay and represents the combination of my masculine and feminine qualities as a non-binary person, someone whose gender doesn't fit into a strict category. It is also a satirical in-joke referencing pop music, drag culture, Bond novels, and 1960s cinema, made about myself with people who know me in mind. The vast majority of New Zealanders will not tolerate violent and malicious rhetoric in our country. They will not accept toxic conspiracies which attempt to bully and threaten queer people out of public life. I refuse to be disappeared by hate. We have a choice as members of Parliament to reject this imported culture war of hate and division. We can and must do better than this, because that is what the people of Aotearoa deserve. I'm happy to take your questions.
Do you believe you've done anything wrong, Benjamin?
No, I don't.
Do you believe there was anything problematic about any of the posts that you made on your social media, and why have you deleted so many of them?
In the context of that old account, my personal account, and the posts that you're talking about, they were made in reference to me, about me and my life, and they have been taken wildly out of context and manipulated.
Do you understand why people think it was inappropriate to have a picture of a child accompanied by that word?
The context of that series of images is about me, a reference to me and my nickname or my persona, and the various many things that go on in my life, like a screenshot of the different things that are happening for me at that time. When it's taken out of context and manipulated by bad faith actors to look a certain way, that's what's going to happen.
People take issue with the words busi galore. What's your definition of busi galore?
So busi is a reference to me, as I've said. Busi galore is a wordplay of the character from the James Bond novel Goldfinger, Pussy Galore.
And you've said that it's basically you living your best life. But it's a lot more explicit than that, isn't it?
No, it's just plainly said, it's just about me. It's a reference to myself and no one else.
So in your opening statements, you have said it's simply me living my best life. It is more explicit than that. It is a play on the words boy and pussy. Do you accept that?
In this context, that is not what it is. In this context, it is a reference to me and a nickname that my friends and people who know me understand as a reference to me.
Can you see why people might take issue with that you're picking and choosing what definition you feel is appropriate?
When an image and words are taken out of a context and manipulated to seem a certain way, I can see how people might get that impression.
You mentioned at the beginning that have been raised online with you, just so you can address them outright. There have been some concerns raised about the use of the spiral emoji. Are you aware of the connotations of that online and its links to child sexual harm?
In Aotearoa, we are surrounded by Māori motifs such as the koru. I don't know a single person who would look at a spiral in this country earnestly and think anything as malicious as that. I was not aware of that conspiracy, and I would only use that, as most people would, as a reference to a koru in Aotearoa.
You mentioned at the beginning that the party advised you to remove the social media account. Looking back, do you regret not doing that?
I could never have predicted or foreseen the level of violent hate that I have been receiving because of the manipulation and taking of images of my child. We could not have prepared for that, and we could never have predicted it.
They told you to delete the account, so do you regret not doing that?
The Green Party said that I would face homophobia, I would face hate. We didn't predict that I would face this level of violent conspiracy-fueled threats to my life.
Benjamin, would it be fair to say that when Georgina came into Parliament, she too faced the same type of vitriol? What she did was put it in a book before she turned up, but still got the backlash from the larger, wider community who do not have access to the hapori takatāpui, and that is probably the basic issue. They don't have access. They don't have access to the kupu, to the reo of takatāpui, te ao takatāpui, and that's what you're having to do now, is to explain to the wider majority of people what it is to be takatāpui.
The rainbow community, as you've said, is a really diverse community. I don't represent every single rainbow person. We are a rich and diverse group of people, much like any community. And there are going to be differences and variations in our language, our identities, our beliefs. This is an example of that. I am just a member of a group of people in the rainbow community. That's right, we're not a monolith.
Why didn't you take the Greens' advice and pull that page down?
I came to Parliament with the backing of people to be my authentic self and to represent the communities that I come from. I have been supported the whole way through this by people who know me and care for me to not relent on being unapologetic on the things that matter. I am not going to be disappeared from public life, and queer people should not have to minimise ourselves.
Who exactly was it that advised you to take it down?
Pardon me?
Who exactly was it that advised you to take it down?
I was advised when I was a candidate, which was a fair while back, and I actually can't recall. It was leadership from the Green Party.
And how did that conversation go?
The advice I received was that coming into public office, I would probably face homophobia and queerphobia based on my identity, and that for the interests of my well-being, I might like to take it down to avoid nasty comments. They trusted me to have the authority and autonomy over that decision myself.
You say you refused to be disappeared by hate. Did you ever consider stepping down over the last week or so?
No.
Why not? Can you just explain that decision?
Yeah. Because this is really important, this fight that we're having right now. If I were to step down and to move away from this space, our community would lose a voice, and we don't have much representation in here, especially non-binary Takatapui people. I have the backing of my community, I have the backing of my whānau, their confidence. The people have reached out and supported me and said that they will wrap around me, and I am here to fight for the things that matter to us and our community.
Despite your explanation and your opening remarks, there'll still be some people who are confused why you refer to yourself using that term. How would you unpack that for them? How would you reassure them that there's nothing more nefarious to it?
Sure. Many cultures and people and communities and friends use nicknames or kind of tongue-in-cheek references to each other in closed group environments and circles of friends. In my community, which was quite large on that Instagram account of friends who understood for a long time that it's kind of a nickname or persona for me, much like, I don't know, a character like Fred Dagg, who is kind of a obscure pop culture reference. The name is kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's, simply put, just a persona or identity and part of my identity and kind of online presence.
Could you explain the severity of the threats? Was police involvement required? How much of it was, seemed close to realised?
Sorry, there are multiple parts to that question. Could you please ask it again?
The severity of the threats. How much was sort of potentially realised threats and required police involvement?
Sure. So I've been following a process guided by Parliamentary Security and the DPS around referring all threats through that specific pathway, and it's not my position to determine whether or not they're valid. That has been followed by that process, and I've entrusted them to follow it correctly.
What are you willing to engage with police at all? Have police been involved?
I have been engaging with Parliamentary Security specifically, and then they have been the conduit for the correct process.
You've described the level of hate that you've received as poisonous, transphobic hate. Do you believe that is also the case when it comes to Winston Peters' criticism?
I would rather have a conversation kanohi ki te kanohi with the Right Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Mr Peters, because I believe that we can't resolve anything through bickering or in the media. I would rather have a restorative conversation with him directly. Pardon me?
What did you make of his comments?
To be honest, I've been very overwhelmed with many pieces of information, comments about me, so I haven't taken a great amount of time to reflect specifically on his
How
words.
important is it that you continue to use those words, living your true authentic self, and allow the rangatahi Takatapui to continuously hear those words, given that we've got such a high level of suicide amongst our rangatahi? How important is it for them to hear that?
Identity is essential for all people's well-being. The rainbow community have had our identities, especially Takatapui people, have had our identities stripped of us. it is so important that I show up authentically as myself to represent our communities so they can see themselves in this place, which is a very hostile environment. And yes, the realities of that are obviously becoming very clearly to me very dangerous, but that doesn't mean I should stop in this relentless pursuit to present an authentic version of a politician.
As politically naive, do you believe that you used good political judgment throughout this, in regards to your language on social media?
So all of those references on social media were before I was a Member of Parliament, so of course I didn't have any kind of political... And that's when I received that advice, when I was a candidate.
And you stand by your political judgment throughout that?
Yes, because I could never have predicted that people would end up with conspiracies threatening to kill me and the safety of my child online.
So to be completely clear though, with hindsight, you wouldn't do anything differently?
It's really important to make it clear that queer people should not have to erase their identities and minimise ourselves for the comfort of others. We deserve to exist in this world authentically as ourselves without risk of being manipulated and misportrayed and weaponised against each other.
Are you aware of the party aware of the identity of the businessman behind the X profile that was a lot of this originated from? Tui Teka, I believe?
I only was made aware of that article as I came down, so I don't actually have any comment on it, sorry.
Have you considered any legal action, be it harmful digital communications or defamation against the person behind the account or anyone else?
I'm aware there are multiple avenues that we can take to address this situation. I haven't made any decisions about that, and I don't want to comment on that here right now.
One of the issues that people took wasn't just the language that you use and the way that you express yourself. It's actually that you did that alongside photographs of your child. Do you accept it was wrong to post photographs of your child alongside sexual slang like that?
The words I used in my private account historically were not sexual words. They were nicknames and references to myself. The images of my child,
And the caption was Bossy Galore.
which is a reference to a Bond movie. And that image is a picture of Crocs, my feet, and then a coffee. So I think they've been taken out of context and manipulated to fit this rhetoric to attack the queer community and portray us as unsafe.
You recognise that that term pussy does have a sexual connotation to a lot of people.
I recognise that a lot of people won't know the word bussy, and so they'll be hearing about it for the first time now, and that some people don't use or like it or have a particular definition. Every time I have ever used that term, it has been a reference to me and my nickname.
It's never been sexual in any way or form.
It's a nickname or like a drag persona. It's a caricature of myself.
You never meant it in a sexual way at all.
I've always meant it as a reference to myself.
How many threats you faced and whether that has increased over time, how that's changed?
No, I can't. I can tell you that I've received hundreds of threats, but I can't give you specific details.
How did you get them?
In community with friends through kind of hanging out and laughing and joking and being interested in pop culture.
Have you taken down that page?
Pardon me?
Will you or have you taken down your page?
I have, except for one post when I became a Member of Parliament to say I'm now a Member of Parliament, I haven't been using that page. It's an inactive page.
Last question.
Why not delete it? Sorry, why not delete it?
Last question.
Sorry.
Why not delete the page? Delete the page.
Because it's not in use currently, and I'm not prepared to eradicate myself or minimise myself for the comfort or narrative of homophobic people trying to attack the queer community. Thank you very much.
Can you please answer that? Can someone please answer that?